or the sunsets. Nothing captures the sunsets better than the desert. And the way it hits the plants and the wildlife here is just it's magic, and it just makes you feel something.
Welcome to the Desert Lady Diaries podcast, conversations with women who have found their home in the Mojave Desert. I'm Dawn Davis, and this is episode 154. Find out more about the podcast at desertladydiaries.com and engage with the guests, with other listeners, or me on Facebook and Instagram at Desert Lady Diaries. If you've been looking for Desert Lady Diary merch, today's your lucky day. Desert Lady Diaries merch shop is hosted by Threadless.com, and they are having a sale. T-shirts, regularly $20, are $15, and everything else in the Desert Lady Diaries merch shop is 15% off until June 27th. Find all the merch at desertladydiaries.threadless.com. That's desertladydiaries.threadless.com. Sale ends June 27th at 5 p.m. Central Time.
Alicia Moreno moved to the Morongo Basin from Orange County in 1995 and has been here ever since. She's a full-time student at the University of Redlands, pursuing her education to become a physician's assistant. 4 years ago, Alicia was looking for a creative outlet and began making candles. What began as a hobby has now turned into a business called Soy Good Candles. Alicia resides in Yucca Valley, California, with her daughter, her boyfriend, and their dog. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Dawn. Thanks for having me.
Sure. The first question is always the same. What was your first experience with the desert?
Well, my first experience with the desert was when I moved to one in 1995. I was 9 years old at the time, and I moved out here with my dad, my brother, and my sister from Orange County.
What made the family decide to move out here?
My dad was just pretty much ready for a change, and my grandma owned a condo at the time out here, and it was our first experience with the desert. And since she had this condo available, it was convenient for my dad, who was a single dad to 3 kids. And so making that move for him just seemed like the right thing to do at the time. And that's what brought us out here to Yucca Valley.
Do you remember any interesting things that happened when you all first moved out here into that condo in the desert?
Yes. So first thing, the drive felt like forever, even though I know now as an adult that it was more or less a little over 2 hours. Coming up through Morongo and making that push into Yucca Valley, it was like stepping into a whole nother world. It was like going back in time. And in the 90s, it was pretty popular among kids for Pogs and Slammers to be the game that was played. And when you drive into Yucca Valley to this day, they have these huge circles for the Rotary Club or what have you, little landmarks. And when I drove into town with my family, I remember asking my dad if those were ginormous slammers, which were like little metal circles that you would play a game with, almost like jacks, but with Pogs and Slammers. And so I remember distinctly thinking, wow, those are really huge slammers. And my dad was like, those are not slammers. So that was my first impression coming in, just seeing these huge circle landmark things and just kind of thinking that they were just there for kids, for entertainment, to be like, hey, we support poggers and things like that. So that was not the case.
Welcome
and
to
those
Pod
are
City.
yeah, those are still in place to this day. That was my first impression. And then my second impression was, what is there to do out here as a kid? It was so desolate at the time that we moved here. I mean, the town literally consisted of Highway 62 with no street signs. You could literally drive from Yucca Valley to 29 Palms without even having to stop. It was just Highway 62 all the way. There were no stop signs. There were no street lights. We were here before the movie theater was even built or before there was a Starbucks in town. So over the 25 years that I've lived here, I've seen this small, quiet, sleepy town expand tremendously. So it's been quite the experience to see my hometown just blow up, it seems like overnight, and gain this popularity. Whereas when we moved here and people would say, "Where are you from?" And you would say Yucca Valley, and they would be like, "Where's that?" And we used to have to use Palm Springs as our landmark. Oh, about 30 miles away from Palm Springs. Oh, everyone knows Palm Springs. Now you can be like, oh, Joshua Tree, 29 Palm. Oh, okay, I know exactly where that's at. So it's kind of been put on the map over the years, and it's just been interesting to see the growth of the community.
What was it like? Because you said you were 9 years old, so you left some school friends behind. What was that like integrating into a new school system and trying to make new friends?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad of a transition because I was still fairly young. My sister would have been about 6, I believe, and my brother was about 11 or 12. So we were all fairly close in age. So whatever friends one of us made, they all became friends. So if my brother made a new friend or I made a new friend, we kind of joined forces. So it wasn't too difficult to transition and make friends and meet new people. Growing up in the condos, which is located near the Boys and Girls Club, not too far away, I had the privilege of having a friend not next door, but the door down. And I met her when I was 9 years old, and we've been friends for 26 years now. So
Oh my
she
gosh.
was my lifeline and my best friend, and I was just so excited to meet someone who I got along with and clicked with just right off the bat, and happened to live one door down, so it wasn't too much of a walk or anything to get to her house.
That's cool. I've had some folks on who have grown up here and gone to school here, and they talk about the national park, going on school trips in the national park. Was that your experience growing up here, or did your family also make some trips in?
It was not a part of my school's program to take field trips there. It's so hard to hear people call it the national park to this day because it used to be referred to as the monument. So a lot of locals will still say the monument. But we did, as a family, make trips up there, which actually I have an interesting story about that. We probably had lived here for maybe a year or so, and we went out to the monument and went rock climbing. And my brother, being the older brother, he's going up these big formations, and I'm right behind him. I'm following right behind him. And somehow I end up slipping down this ginormous rock and down into like a bowl, which was created by like water and rain in the rock. So it was just a steep drop. I actually had to get helicopter rescued out by the park rangers. And my dad was so mad at my brother for leading me to this dangerous position because I wanted to be like my big brother and I wanted to go where he was going. But apparently he was smart enough to stop where he did. And I just kept on going and just happened to slip down this rock formation, which could have been, plummeted to my death. But Mother Nature just created this little pit in the rock
Mm.
where I just swooped down from the rock and landed right into that little bowl of the rock. And the park rangers had to get a helicopter because they couldn't access me from where I had fallen. And so, yeah, they had to bring out the helicopter to get me up out of that little predicament that I got myself into at that young, tender age.
Oh my goodness. But it doesn't sound like you were hurt too badly.
No, no, I wasn't. I don't know how that was even possible. I didn't break any bones, obviously some minor scrapes and bruises, but yeah, I was really lucky to not have gotten seriously injured, but more so just was in awe watching the helicopter come, air hover above me to rescue me. And then even today, just hearing about the situations that tourists get themselves into in the park and things like that just makes you grateful for the rangers out there who are so experienced with the terrain. They know what they can do, what they cannot do. But unfortunately, those that visit the park don't know what they can and cannot do, and unfortunately get themselves into situations like I did,
Right.
when I was just a little girl.
Yeah, it can be dangerous out there, especially at this time of the year. People not bringing enough water and they get out there, get a little disoriented. All four directions looks pretty much the same. So it's good to stay on the trails and bring plenty of water and hike with someone, or at least, at the very least, leave a note on your dash of where you're hiking and stick to it so that if something does happen, people can find you.
Oh, absolutely. I think that growing up out in these elements and the heat that we have, especially as it picks up in May, June, July, I think it's extremely important for all visitors to remember that not only is packing water essential, like you must bring more than you think that you're going to consume because it is disorienting when you get out there. The direction of which you came cannot be what you think. It is quite large. People get lost. It is possible. Very important to let people know what trails you plan on going to, how long you plan on being out, so that if you're not back by the expected time, then they kind of know when to let that panic set in or let that search happen because life and death is a matter of minutes to hours. So it's extremely important to communicate with what you're doing when you're coming out here.
Yeah. Have a plan and stick to
Yes.
it. So you were saying that there wasn't a whole lot for kids to do out here. So how did you and your friends and your siblings entertain yourselves when you were looking for something to do?
Oh my goodness, man. We would hike up to the hills up by this water tower where the condos are located, and we would camp and we would go to the BMX track, which they recently remodeled in Yucca Valley. And I'm super stoked to see that that is still something that they're doing for the kids out here because when I was younger, my brother raced BMX, and going to the BMX track every Thursday to watch him and watch the others race against each other was honestly like the highlight of our childhood. There wasn't really a whole lot to do. Walmart used to be closer than it is now before they built the super Walmart. So walking to Walmart was like a really fun thing. We would walk Highway 62 to Walmart and just spend the day in there because it was cool.
Mhm.
It would be so hot out. Yeah, there wasn't really a whole lot to do. We had to make fun and just find things to do out here, which I think is still for anyone listening that has kids or that have raised kids out here. I have my daughter, she'll be 13 this June, and she's born and raised out here. There's still really not a whole lot to do for the kids out here, especially with COVID. The movie theater is not even open. You can't even catch a flick if you wanted to. Yucca Bowl was here when I was a kid, so that was something that my family would do every now and again when we could. And they recently remodeled the inside of that, which is really exciting for the community and just something fun for the family to get out and do. But other than that, yeah, there wasn't really a whole lot. We just had to make do with what we had, and hiking and camping was pretty much the happening thing to do.
Hmm. You essentially grew up here for all intents and purposes. So when you got into high school and graduation was looming, were there thoughts of, wow, I can't wait to get out of here. I'm leaving and going somewhere else. And what happened with all of that?
Oh, absolutely. Growing up out here, I couldn't wait to leave. I graduated high school early and I ended up moving to Orange County and going to Orange Coast College, just a community college right there near Newport Beach. But after a year of being out there, I ended up moving back to the desert because that was a culture shock for me to move from the desert to Orange County because growing up out here and then all of a sudden you're in this big huge area, there's a whole lot to do. And of course at 18 that's very exciting, but it was also scary because I was coming out of my comfort zone. I didn't have any friends or family out there. It was really just out on a whim. And then when you go to look at getting your own place, it's like, yikes, the rent out here is unaffordable for a college student. I was working at a gym in Disneyland at the time. Believe it or not, I had two jobs while attending school. And even then, that wasn't enough to even get a little tiny apartment. The costs of an apartment in Orange County, I was thinking I could get a huge house in Yucca Valley, my hometown, for the cost of that. My goodness, I need to move back. And I, of course, I missed my family. My brother and sister still live out here to this day. My dad still lives out here. My best friend, who I've been friends with for 26 years, she moved to Maine and went to Maine University, was there for 4 years, and she moved back. So I just missed my family, my friends, and something about coming up over that hill and just feeling home is all I can say about it. I just missed home, and that was my main motivation for moving back from Orange County. Not just because it was expensive rent wise. I just didn't feel home there. I spent a year there. I tried it out And that's what I told myself. It wasn't really a failed situation. It just didn't work for me. It wasn't meant for me to be there. And I knew that my heart was calling me back home. And that's where I found myself coming back. And I've been here ever since.
It's funny you would say that about that cresting that part of the yucca grade, the feeling that you get, because that's the feeling that I immediately had the very first time that I came here. So that feeling of, I don't know if it was home, familiar, there was just something about it that really just grabbed me from the moment that we crested there.
Absolutely. And not just that, I mean, the night skies out here, I couldn't see the stars in Orange County. It was too smoggy, or I was just like, where's all the stars at out here? Like, I was just so used to crystal clear skies at night where you could literally see every star in the sky
Mhm.
and stargaze, or the sunsets. Nothing captures the sunsets better than the desert. And the way it hits the plants and the wildlife here is just, it's majestical. It's magic. And it just makes you feel something for
Yeah,
whatever it is for that person. It just draws you to it, and you just want to live inside the glow.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, exactly.
You just want to find your little happy place right there inside of the orange and the pinks and just live inside that glow. And it's captivating. It's mesmerizing. It's just so many things that I didn't appreciate as a child. The quietness of the town, which is obviously not as quiet as it once was, but just the slow pace of it. Not everything was so quick, 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 quick. When I was in Orange County, everything was just so now, 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 now. And I just wanted to live in the moment. And everyone was just doing so many big things, I felt. And like, I just felt like a small town girl in like a big city again. And I just didn't really know what to do with myself in that situation. I was like, I just feel out of sorts.
Mm,
I just don't feel like I belong here right now.
mm. So you're pursuing a degree to become a physician's assistant. What inspires you about the medical field?
Yeah, so I'm currently at the University of Redlands wrapping up my senior year, and I intend on applying to a few different PA schools. I started medicine at the age of 16, believe it or not. An oral surgeon took a chance on a high school kid and gave me the opportunity to work the front desk at his office, just filing paperwork, answering phones, just an after school job. I ended up graduating high school early, and he offered me a full time position. And at that time, I knew I was going to move to Orange County because I wanted to go to college. So I said, sure, I'll go ahead and take that position, but just know that when it's all said and done, like I plan on moving away. Well, at the age of 17, he says, you should really look into becoming an oral and maxillofacial surgical assistant, and I'll pay for the course. And you just have to do 8 months of training, and then you go and take the final written exam. And if you pass, then you get your certification. So I did that. And at the age of 17, I became certified in oral and maxillofacial surgery, which they were all extremely impressed when I took the test. I was the youngest person that had ever attempted and passed it on the first try. And that's where my love of medicine really came into. That was more of like the surgery lane, which I really enjoyed doing. But as the years went on, I really just kind of went through different fields of medicine. And then that's when I knew that there was nothing else that I would rather do. I work with Yucca Family Medical Care, and there's some amazing PAs and Dr. Sabero that works in that office. And Dr. Sabero was like a mentor to me. He really inspired me to pursue my dreams and to pursue medical school, but that was a little bit much for me. So I knew PA was the perfect route for me because I would be able to cross train in multiple fields of medicine and then better pick what suited me and my needs. So yeah, it's just been a really good experience, and I've been in the medical field now for over 16 years. I've worked in surgery, I've worked at High Desert Medical Center, and there's no better feeling for me than helping people. It's always been my nature to want to take care of people and help them. And so pursuing medicine for me was a no-brainer. It was just what I feel like I was born to do.
And what a great situation to have stepped into with someone who just saw so much potential in you and put his money where his mouth was and says, you know what, I believe in you. Let me help you. That's awesome.
It meant the world to me. He ended up actually, because I was walking to work, I was there every day. I was walking, in the heat of the summer and walking to his office. He actually was so kind to tell me that he would buy me my first used car if I could find a car. He would be willing to get me my first vehicle because he saw that I was walking to work and I was just young and determined, and what he saw in me, I did not see in myself at that time.
Mhm.
And looking back now just makes me so emotional because unfortunately, Dr. Tyner and his wife lost their lives in a tragic DUI accident in 29 Palms. So that was really a difficult time because they took me in and they made me feel like family. And they really just encouraged me to be the best that I could, and he saw it in me before I even saw it in myself. So it was just a really awesome experience to work there, and I was with him for a little over 2 years.
Wow. So you spend a lot of time studying and taking classes, and yet you have time to run a business. How did you get into candle making? How did that happen?
Honestly, it started out, I've always loved candles, loved to purchase them, loved to smell them in the stores, and I had made a shorthand comment to my boyfriend Eric at the time just saying, I'd really love to make my own candles. And he bought me my first candle making kit for Christmas. Best Christmas gift I ever got. And it just started out as a harmless hobby. I was just making candles for my friends, for family. And then my sister opened a small little shop in Yucca Valley. And I started selling candles in there just a little bit. And then when COVID hit, she closed her store, and I had a military wife reach out to me, and she's still to this day one of my top customers. She's so so loyal. She comes back like all the time. But she reached out to me and said, "Do you have a Facebook page?" And I never even thought of making it like a business official. Like I just thought I was going to just do it on the side and just make them for friends and family or for my sister's store. And then after thinking about it, COVID hit, and I had already been making candles at that point for 2 years and kind of mastered the craft, so to speak. And then I just decided, let's go for it. Let's make a Facebook page. Let's make this accessible to the community and let's just see what happens and where it goes. And it's really, some people will garden, some people will write, paint, what have you. This is my creative outlet. Working in medicine is very stressful. You're taking on a lot of personalities and medical issues, and that can sometimes take a lot of your energy. And this is my way of just putting it into something creative and kind of giving me that outlet to find my peace and center it all back. So
Mm.
I don't lose myself, in all of this because it can be very difficult losing patients or just things that happen throughout the course of medicine that can take a toll on healthcare professions.
When you have a number of scents that you offer. How do you decide like it's time to create something new? Does it go with the seasons, or do you just maybe you're reading some candle blog and you're like, ooh, I haven't heard of that scent. Let me just see if I can try that.
Honestly, the scents are my favorite part of candle making. Getting a new scent or coming up with a new scent is my favorite part of the process. So, right now I have over 25 scents and it's excessive, I would say, but I really enjoy new scents. I want to burn something new in my home. And so I want to make that accessible to my customers as well. I like to change it up and not just keep it the same thing. I have scents that I've held on to for the 4 years that I've been making candles. And then there's some scents that I'm like, not too fond of that one. Like I'll let that go or what have you. But getting a new scent is my favorite part of the entire process. Smelling it, creating it, and then putting it into a candle and bringing that scent to life is my ultimate favorite part about making the candles, hands down. So it's not necessarily blogs or anything that inspire me or seasons. It's just smells that I think would smell good. And in return, I hope my customers think smell good. So it's really just off of a gut intuition, I would say, on what scents I make, what I carry, or what I decide to put into a candle.
And it's kind of like chemistry.
Yes, very much so. I can't tell you how many people, since I've started Soy Good Candles, I've had 4 or 5 different people reach out to me that I know either directly or through somebody else who has said, hey, I want to start making candles. What's the process? What do I need? Is it costly? And the answer is it's costly up front. And there is a science behind it. There's flash points for each fragrance. You have to make sure that you're getting the fragrance hot enough for the fragrance to adhere. You have to make sure it's not too hot because then you're burning off that fragrance, and those fragrances can be expensive or what have you. And then it goes through a trial and error process when you're first starting out because you want to test burn to make sure you're not giving a bad product. You want to make sure the wick is appropriate to the candle container size. You want to make sure the fragrance is going to work with the wax that you're choosing. There are just a lot of different elements. So these people that have reached out to me were like, I didn't realize it was going to be that much. So never mind, maybe. Or, hey, I'll keep you posted. And hands down, like I love to support other makers, which we are surrounded by amazing artisans in this area. There's so many local artists and candle makers that I happily support, and they've all been extremely supportive of me. The success of Soy Good Candles wouldn't be possible without the community that has had my back since day one and just shown love and support. And it's just been amazing. It's more than I ever would have imagined, honestly. And it's one of the best things that I decided to do for myself. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of things and make a lot of decisions for other people. And this was the one thing I decided to do for myself. And I was so happy to finally find something that makes me happy, something that I enjoy doing. My friend Erin's always like, man, aren't you getting burned out on making all these candles all the time? You got so many orders, isn't it get tiring? And it's like, no, it's exciting for me. This is my way of being creative and making something creative that I can share with other people.
That's really cool. I'm very glad that you took time out of your candle making, and you're kind of off school now, right? You don't start again until what, August?
Yes, I'm off. I'm on summer break until September. So I've been utilizing my summer break to do some volunteer work for the Morongo Basin Unity Home.
That's right. How's that going for you?
That has been quite the experience. I've lived in the town for a very long time, and it wasn't until I began volunteering with the Morongo Basin Unity Home that I realized the extent to the services that they provide for victims of domestic violence. It's been awesome. All of the employees have been very warm and welcoming, and I look forward to continuing doing some volunteer work with them. Their next fundraiser coming out in October for domestic violence awareness, which is the month of October. So I'm just really excited to be a part of the team and to better be able to assist those that need it the most. As I mentioned, helping people is something that I love to do, and these people really need the help and the support, and I'm happy to give it to them.
Well, thank you for doing that. You're doing a lot, and I'm happy to know you.
Thank you so much, Dawn. It's been a pleasure being able to meet you, and you're inspiring as well. You've been through so much and done so much, so it's been a true treat for me to be able to conversate with you, and I'm so happy that you found your home in my little hometown.
Yay. So before I let you go, I'm going to pick some random questions from the magic jar. If you're not familiar with Diary Unlocked, this is a portion of the podcast where we ask the guest 4 random questions, and the answers to those questions are available as exclusive content for Patreon supporters of the podcast. So if you would like to hear Alicia's answers to these questions and support the podcast, go to desertladydiaries.com, click on the support page, and become a patron of the podcast. All right. The questions that Alicia is going to answer are, the best thing I ate this week was, I don't think I've ever had that one come up yet. In your lifetime, has there been a relationship or a job you stayed in too long? And how did you decide to move on? Finish this sentence. The world would be a better place if, and the last question is 1 year from now, what will you be celebrating? So if you want to hear Alicia's answers to those questions, go to desertladydiaries.com, click on the support page, and sign up to be a patron of the podcast. Alicia Moreno, thank you so much for being on today and for being such a giving member of the community that we live in.
Thank you so much, Dawn. It was nice talking with you as well.
I have a shout out this week to Rose C. Rose, thank you so much for signing up for the new episode newsletter. I appreciate you. And to Linda R. of Washington, D.C. Linda found the podcast while searching for information about Palm Springs, which is where we met in person for lunch last week. Linda is an ardent listener and generous supporter of the podcast. Thanks so much, Linda. Don't forget about the Desert Lady Diaries merch sale at desertladydiaries.threadless.com. It goes until June 27th. Get those tank tops, t-shirts, tote bags, and have fun. Thanks so much for listening.